The quickest way to lose the trust and respect from your project team as a project manager is to be negatively emotionally reactive. It's a huge red flag and one of the clearest way of displaying your lack of emotional intelligence and steadiness to your project team. Sometimes I find myself working with people in leadership that are very emotionally reactive, and that surprised me sometimes. I think it used to be seen as almost like a strength, like don't mess with that person. They have a strong personality, but it's not a strong personality, it's a toxic one. And no one made them accountable for it. I think it's changed definitely nowadays. But if you see a team being afraid of their leader and of your project manager, that's not respect. That's fear. And given the opportunity, that project team wouldn't be influenced by you and they wouldn't follow you because you are not a leader, even if you have the title. They're the type of leaders that are leaders only in title and project teams are forced to work with. So, what's emotional reactivity? It's basically how strongly and quickly you respond to a conflict, an issue, something you disagree with. It's a quick reaction to an emotional trigger. So, someone with high emotional reactivity might yell, might get upset, might feel anxious when a trigger pops up, right? When they're confronted with something that they disagree with or that they have a conflict with. And it can even be to the smallest events, and they can snap, they can criticize. Sometimes it doesn't even take the form of anger. Sometimes it could take the form of feeling overwhelmed or crying. But that still takes away from your credibility. That still takes away from the steadiness that project teams need to see in a project leader. Although that doesn't mean you can't be authentic with them. So, how does negative emotional reactivity, yelling, snapping, being disrespectful, impact your leadership or your perceived leadership? First off, it obviously alienates people. It'll definitely alienate your project team, but it'll also alienate your clients, your stakeholders, your subconsultants, especially if you're displaying this kind of emotional reactivity to everyone. Then, I already said this, but it'll be very hard to have project teams want to work with you. And you'll have to restart relationships with people often because you'll lose the trust of a project team. You'll lose the credibility of a leader, and you'll have to continuously build relationships because of that emotional reactivity. No one wants to work with someone who's yelling at them, with someone who's criticizing them, and having those very high emotional reactions. I said this before, but you lose credibility. It's really hard to regain credibility once you've emotionally reacted to something. You've said something that potentially you regretted, that was offensive, that was taken in a harsh light. Once you react in that manner, you can always see the respect kind of leaving a person or a project team's eyes. And even in their body language, you can see it. They essentially start losing the trust in you, and you start losing all your credibility. Because the way that I see it is, how can you manage a project? How can you manage a project team if you can't even manage your own emotions? So, not all is lost though. We all can work on emotional reactivity. No one's perfect. Even the most steady person can work on emotional reactivity. First off, working on your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is so key when it comes to being a leader. So, how can you develop emotional intelligence? It's obviously something that you have to work on consistently for a long time, especially if you're very dysregulated. But it starts with self-awareness. Start noticing when you're triggered. Start being honest with yourself. Try to put your ego aside for a little while and just start really noticing when you're getting triggered, when you're being emotionally reactive. Go and talk to people that you trust and get some feedback about your emotional reactions. Then start working on self regulating. When you do notice those triggers and when you do notice that you're about to emotionally react, take a pause, take a breath, count to 10, do something to distract yourself from emotionally reacting. It's going to take a while to practice, and it's going to take a while to get competent at not reacting quickly. And then really hone in on your empathy. Enter conversations looking to understand the other person rather than looking to just reply. Really practice active listening before you react. Really sit there and try to Focus on understanding what the other person is saying, and then focus on clearly forming a calm response. Then try to rely on your communication skills. Try to be clear and try to be considerate when you are responding to that person. For me, my emotional reactivity really subsided a lot when I started to stop caring so much about what other people thought of me or what other people thought of the work that I had produced. Because I started realizing none of it was personal. I knew that I provided value. I knew inherently, and maybe maybe that's a big part of this, right? Starting to embrace yourself, starting to find the value in yourself and your own worth and really embrace it, truly believe in it, truly be grounded in your sense of self in order to be able to know that what you bring has value, even if others don't. That'll help you be able to react much slower. It'll help you be able to have less triggers. Then I already mentioned this, but be slow to react. Let there be some silence. Let there be some space between whatever someone said, the conflict that's happening, the disagreement that's happening, and your response. Count to 10. Take 10 deep breaths. Do whatever it is to do in order to slow down your responses. I used to think that I was just very passionate and that I felt more than others. And that's why my emotional reaction was so big. But really, I was just emotionally immature. Nowadays, working on that, practicing being a slow reactor, practicing finding my self-worth so that I don't care and I have much less triggers, it is very rare that I react quickly. Although I am still human, it does happen sometimes. I don't yell or anything, but I do emotionally react where I'm anxious about something. But even anxiety can be translated to your project team, and that's not how I want to present myself as a leader. So I really work on it. The last thing you want to do once you start working on all of these things to reduce your emotional reactivity is to start being consistent so that your project team can start trusting you again and you can start gaining that credibility again. Because of that consistency, your project team is no longer afraid to tell you bad news or no longer afraid to tell you about that issue because they know you're not going to emotionally react, because they can trust how consistently you've brought that steadiness within yourself. And they can trust your leadership style now. They can trust your reactions now. They no longer fear you. They now started respecting you because of that consistency. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.